Are we ready?
Sure.
Oh, do you want this?
Of course.
I am you. You are me. Together we share red blood. Five-fingered ones stand together. Sing and pray and voice what's right and not ignore what is so wrong. Sick man at the table, hand on the trigger. He was little, he was sad, all grown up, he got mad. Many are dying while others are crying, and some choose to look the other way. Let's pray, let's pray, let's pray.
Welcome everyone to VoxFem 2022 Fest. I'm Lourdes Pérez, and it's a great pleasure to have with us Tash Terry and Elena Higgins, known musically as Indigie Femme. They're also the producers and hosts of Indigenous Ways. Bienvenidas, Tash and Elena.
Yeah, muchas gracias for having us.
Thank you. Aneta and I met you both at the National Women's Music Festival in 2019 and fell in love immediately. It was just love at first sight. Yes, with your beautiful voices, your music, your talent, of course, but also with who both of you are individually and together with each other and your communities with the bigger picture. That was very, very moving to us. The beauty of your spirit is just really large. And we are honored that you agreed to let us feature you during this 2022 VoxFem Festival. You're both singers, songwriters, musicians, and recording artists. And you're also popular educators and community service workers. It is moving to watch you teach by example. By your dignity, your respectful treatment of others, leading by listening, holding up other people, amplifying voices that need to be heard. I have a few questions for you today. I'm not going to talk a lot, but I want to love to hear your story. And so the first question is, how have your individual origins brought you to where you find yourselves today? And since that requires a cafecito moment.
Wonderful. Well, hey, thank you so much for having us, Annette, Lourdes, for that beautiful presentation. It's an honor for us to both be here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And I have so much gratitude when I see people like yourselves. In my culture, we're called Bala'ashla'i. That means five-fingered ones. And we are all five-fingered ones walking on Mother Earth today. And I believe we all have a purpose to be here. And with free thought, with art, with music, with love and community, and that involves dancing and cooking and being together in communities. Some is biological family, some is family of choice. And of course, there is different forms of education. I think some people know when they're very young what that purpose is, what to project into the future, what to manifest. On the other hand, I think with certain structures in the socialization of people, there is a system set in place to get everybody to behave themselves. So society has used a patriarchal system to be God-fearing people in all over the world. And to me, as a child, when I learned about this, after learning about traditional Navajo ways, which is holy beings and spirits and ancestors are still with us, and all these other teachings that I really fell into and believed in, and then to learn this other way, which was to teach about good orderly direction of discipline and stuff like that, I started to fear. I started to feel guilt, and I started to feel guilty to be a human being because I was left-handed, I was gay, I was half white on a Navajo reservation. So I already had all of these negative oppressions packed into my being. So I learned how to survive. And learning how to survive entailed not being able to be me. So my mission today is to be me. And at the same time, I don't want to impose anything about me on anybody. I want people to be who they are, I want people to be free, and I want people to create and express whatever is their calling. And mine is interpreting for deaf and hard of hearing culture, indigeneity, walking a red road. I'm organic. I don't use drugs. I don't do alcohol. I love to play music. I love to collaborate with people. And fortunately, I came into the world of this beautiful woman from the Southern Hemisphere, New Zealand and Australia. And together we created some music together and eventually got a band name and started a nonprofit. And since then, we are just walking that road and manifesting music and arts as healers to encourage people of all walks of life to come together, to bridge those divides, to bridge those invisible walls, to come together as five-fingered ones to celebrate art, music, engagement, or just sit back and have a good time and eat some good food. So we welcome everybody. Everybody comes from a tribe. It doesn't matter if we're from Europe, if we're from Africa, if we're from Asia, if we're from North America, South America, we all come from tribes. So I say that in a positive sense. I say that in a way that is not separating, is not dividing, is not conquering, but is loving. And I think the best way to do that is to use a platform with music and creativity to do that. That's just for me. So let's find out what Elena has to say.
Thank you.
I don't. You summed it up.
Okay.
Thank you.
I summed it up.
That's just so beautiful. Thank you. So powerful and so needed. Thank you. Thank you. What does your relationship provide in the way of strength and challenges? Tell us about that.
Yeah. Thanks, Lourdes, for the questions. And thanks, VoxFem. It's quite an honor for us to be here. And, you know, thank you for the question in regards to relationship. Our relationship, my relationship. And, you know, I want to go back to the first question, which was essentially 18 years ago, had this vision because I discovered I had a voice, and it was, what do I want to do with that? And it was sing on a worldwide stage, knowing nothing about music or music industry, left a teaching job where I was in Australia in a juvenile detention center, and busied myself finding out more about this industry and doing festival circuit in Australia, to then a year later getting the opportunity to have three trips to Turtle Island, you know, and racking up the summer circuit in 2006 or for 2006. So I had a one-way ticket here, came to Santa Fe and met Tash, who was also a soloist. And many things were happening between us. I was I had a vision to be here no more than 5 years, doing music, had sold everything up in Australia, house on the market, kind of just total faith. And, I thought that journey was really difficult. But, the greatest journey has been my journey with Tash. And so as soloist, we amalgamated, so it became a duo rather than the U-Haul thing. And we were very blessed to travel in a very short period of time, both nationally and internationally, not only learning each other's music, but also co-creating in that space. And one of the things that Tash and I are very passionate about as grassroots organization, particularly in relation to Mother Earth, human rights, and so forth and so forth. So we supported a lot of grassroots organizations with our music, would show up all voluntary, love, pro bono, traveling around the countryside, supporting many, many organizations. And what we found in this journey was, as beautiful as it was, and this was at the time of, so I'm talking about 2006, 2007, a lot of the organizations that we were supporting, particularly the leaders in those organizations, what we observed, which was pretty systematic, was as beautiful as the mission was, it might have been the family was starving, the kids were not getting fed, or, you know, or there was domestic violence, or these things. And so what ended up happening was, as passionate as we were in supporting, we really had to look at ourselves like, well, how does this look holistically? So when you're looking about, talking about relationship, you know, the hardest journey that I've taken is really looking at me, and really coming from Indigenous family, New Zealand, Maori, Samoan, in the foster system, growing up in New Zealand with three loving families. But just from the trauma of what I experienced and the way that I perceived the world, wherever I went, there I was. And so, you know, the greatest thing that I had was falling in love with this extraordinary woman beside me. And when the honeymoon finished, it wasn't like how I've done with other partners, like, who the hell are you? You need to be fixed. It got old, and it really was an internal look at myself. Then it was an internal look with our path together. And that's really been fundamental in looking at not only what I do, the healing work that I do, our healing work together on our journey and our relationship, to then creating a board through our nonprofit with what the mission was, being true to our mission through the nonprofit. But it was all holding each other accountable, not only the mission, but with our sacred word, our sacred walk, our sacred intention. And so when we look at our relationships, I'm very grateful today. I would have told you something different in the middle of, because I was the free download, beam me up when it gets difficult. But those were the fundamental building blocks of a very rooted spiritual walk that both I and Tash do, when she talks about the red road, to doing it very clean, very purposeful, with intent, thinking of how, it's nice to say, how can we build community? But I can't build community if I'm broken. And I didn't know this when I met Tash. I was shattered into gazillion pieces. And it was through this woman's love for me and my love for her, where we were able to not only support each other on a very fundamental, loving way, but a real holistic healing way, to be able to do the extraordinary service in our communities that we do. And a lot of that has been through the arts. And you will know this as women of color, lesbian, queer, you know, going out into the circuit, you know, the thousands and thousands of applications that we sent out, we were lucky if we got 10, 20. And so what we wanted to do was, how can we better support our community of who we look like, the walk that they do and the give back? And that's why thank you, Annette. Thank you, Lourdes. We love you. We totally believe in you. Not only it was a blessing meeting you in 2019, but also being able to really see you in the walk and what you have done for over 30 years together,
but also this incredible love that you're doing and have been doing with the community, because it's so needed. And arts, there's no better vehicle than the arts to do that. And we know in history, it was arts that fundamentally made our communities through the dance, the communications, the arts, the movement, you know, the expression of what we have today. And we're at a very pivotal time in our communities of how beautifully insane it is, thanks to colonization, which hasn't really changed. But the only change that can happen is from me, is from us, the people who are attracted to what we are doing, no differently to what you're doing, of having these, creating these very beautiful communities through the arts. So that's the strength. And the strength is through our relationship together, through my own relationship with myself, and tapping into some unknown entity to keep going. Because, you know, let's be honest, some days I've just been on a bender because we're going away for our niece's wedding out of state tomorrow for the next 2 weeks. Then we come back into our festival, the fourth of 5 monthly festivals that we've been doing, and then we go straight into Indian market. So just that, besides other things, getting that sorted before we leave, you know, it has been exhilarating, but also, you know, the self-care has been very important as well.
That is beautifully said, and so many layers of truth and history. One of the things that when we met, it was this unknown entities you talk about. It was actually so clear to me that we were connected, not that we needed to connect, that we have been connected.
Absolutely.
It was like, that's beautiful. Tash, anything you wanted to add in there for that relationship?
All I know is my experience. All I know is my story. And all I know is, as I've walked it, as I've grown into it, as I've lived through it, it's my experience. So what I've learned how to do was to assess all of it to the best of my ability, and to see, what does accountability really mean? And what does calling it really mean? And in this relationship, I'm pinching myself because tomorrow we're flying to the East Coast. We're supporting a wedding. We're singing at a wedding. And then we're going to a few states over to participate in a festival, in which we'll be doing workshops and, concerts, what you do in festivals. We play. And then we're going to go back to Boston and have some fun. And then we're coming back and going right into our nonprofit festival downtown. And then we are going to be performing for Indian Market that weekend. And it's really pinching myself to say, this is the prayer in action. This is the manifestation that is morphing. This is what the purpose is of collaboration. And it's happening, and we're in it now. From when I was walking the lonely road, just so lost, feeling like I was the only weirdest, most unique person that would never find somebody to understand me or be able to love me so freely. And that is the biggest lie that I was walking around with. For one thing, I was never lonely because I always had my ancestors with me. And for the other thing is, I love myself. I really always have, because I've got such a fun brain. My mind is always making me laugh, and my mind is questioning and critical thinking all the time. And I'm like my best entertainment. What do I mean I'm lonely? So I was telling myself those lies. but now I have somebody to play with, somebody to work with, somebody to travel with. And people say, oh, how does it feel to travel with Elena? I said, do you see this smile? It feels like I'm traveling with an overgrown child. She's so happy, and she's in her childness on the airplane looking out the window. And she just has this adventurous attitude about like going as a child into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. And that's the way I travel with her. So it's fun. I mean, I always bring a book because I like old-fashioned reading. I like to read a book. So those kind of things. And I usually take some kind of good literature for me and try to get some good reading done somewhere. If it's on a plane or in the woods or something, I like to read some books too. But yeah, it's work, but it's work that's well worth it because it gets rid of all the junk that's taken up space in my mind of oversensitivities, personalizing, reading into stuff, making assumptions, all of this without any evidence except my own broken conditioning from being a shattered child. And those are all, so if I tell people any advice, I don't trust your own thinking. Take it through another person you trust and then act on it if you really want to do some action.
That is so true, because when we can count on somebody to think for us when we can't, it's very important. I mean, that's speaking from experience is true, So so beautiful that you have each other.
And it's not always the clap, 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 clap. You're so beautiful. You're so great. You're so wonderful. Yes. Some of the feedback where I am at is like, tell me the stuff I don't want to hear. I want to hear it because I want to see that other side of me from the outside. I can't see it because I'm on the inside. So I ask, and the beautiful thing about Elena is I say, I need to pass something by you. It's really deep stuff. It's hurting. She says, would you like me to listen to you, or would you like me to give you feedback? I mean, who does that? I'm like, sometimes I say, I just want you to listen. I just want you to witness my trauma. And sometimes I say, I need some feedback. So that's cool. But it's nice that I can ask or be asked rather than, again, making assumptions.
Right. That is so beautiful that you have that together. Which, brings me to the next question, because you have each other and then you collaborate musically together. And that process not only is a process to work some of these things as well and get the energies moving and connect with other energies, but how do you, as a creative team, how do you work on the music? What is some of the processes? People always want to know that about how do you do it together?
Well, it's very spontaneous. For me, I grew up listening to a lot of chanting, and there's chanting, and I never really knew or even thought what is the purpose of chanting, and but for me as a creative vehicle, the chanting opened me up to the spirit to make a connection, to just go, and then just go on to it and let the chant happen and let it build itself, let it make itself. And then in that chanting momentum, the thought comes in, and the thought comes in about what is this chanting evoking in me? And it's a story, but I don't know what the story is yet. And then I just keep chanting, and then the story comes, and then the story is meaningful because it's a story that's inspired by the chanting, which is my indigenous roots and conditioning. And then from there, I start to make a song, maybe in Navajo words, or bilingual, or English. And then oftentimes it kind of goes into the folk genre. And sometimes I kind of slip into Americana, which is kind of folky anyway. And then sometimes it goes into this, that. And with Elena, she is just perfect because she's a weaver. She's a weaver musically. So she's able to hear the other voice in it. So she's able to hear the weaving part where I'm singing this and she says this, and then maybe we come together in a chorus in a harmony. Or maybe she does a chorus and I chant in the background. Our latest song we wrote, that's exactly what's happening is she's speaking in Maori and I'm chanting in Native, but my chant is not really saying anything. It's just evoking an emotion, but her message came through in her language. So it's very much a collaborative process, and it happens quite magically, to be honest with you. It really does, because if I'm standing in the shower, I can just start singing about the craziest anything in melody. And if I keep that melody in my head and I jump out discipline and I hit quick voice on my phone and I just sing into it, whether it's folk or chanting or whatever, I save it. If you look inside my phone, I have a whole bunch of quick voice stuff. So when it's time to make an album, I go through it and transcribe it onto the computer verbatim for the most part. And then I take a look at it, stand back and say, there's some good stuff here. About 75% of it is probably garbage. And then that whole process starts where I pull in Elena and let's have a songwriting session here and let's build a song. And we do pretty good. Yeah, we have some really new music that is very, 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 very thought-provoking.
It's awesome.
I can't wait to sing it for you.
I would love to hear it. That is just so awesome. That's awesome. So Elena, what's for you? How is it then?
You know, I love running with this amazing woman, you know, because she's inspiring on so many levels. And she is a very gifted writer. And so as Tash was saying, she will have these downloads. I mean, like when we're getting ready to practice music, if she's waiting for me, she'll just pick up the guitar and just crank out some inspiring song. That's really neat for me. And I want to just say this. What happened when I was saying, you know, I discovered I had a voice. And then where I was living on this tropical island in Australia, I just had this download of music. Now, I had just broken up. So what happened was I got heavily into the songwriting where it was so political with what was going on. It kind of burnt me out, you know. And so when it comes to Tash and my collaborations, it's really wonderful. I always use I'm like the plastic surgeon, you know, the cut and snip and tuck with the songs to have what we have. But right now I'm also exploring, because I can write music, but it's making that time for me and making it happen. So I have to be careful not to go down this road of, gee, I haven't written for a long time, I better write, because it gets blown out of proportion and story.
Yes.
What ends up happening is I end up freezing. And I went recently to a friend's launching of his poetry book. And I said, oh, you know, if you get writer's block, you know, what happens? And he said, oh, a really great poet said to me, just don't take yourself too seriously.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, I have to archive that one. That's a really good one. But I do know, you know, and Lourdes, you're an exquisite writer, you know, and it just melts. And I have to be careful because I want that. I want what Tash has, but then I think about it too much where I just get into this total frozen mode, you know. Then what ends up happening is nothing. Then I'm like, oh, you know, what's wrong with me? You know, and just start going down that, which is just so not productive. So I love the synergy that Tash and I have. It really works. I want to go somewhere else, but I have to treat it like a newborn baby, I guess.
You are the producers and host of Indigenous Ways concert series, Wisdom Circle, and now a large outdoor festival. Tell us why you do it.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. So, as we said earlier, Tash and I on our travels, and this is this wonderful thing of being excluded, excluded in so many areas. And really the nonprofit for us has really been our gift of giving back. And so we've had the nonprofit a year less than since we've been doing the music, which we started in 2006 when we met. Did this nonprofit, knew nothing about nonprofit, but what we were just eager and just had no limits just to explore and do, as Tash was talking about earlier. So being excluded right from birth to then the music industry, should we be surprised? No. What we wanted to do was our give back it was a gift. In 2007 we were on a 48 venue tour throughout Australia, which we did in something like 50 days, and we covered 11,000 miles. It was quite insane. It was very beautiful. And one of the festivals we attended was called then the Dreaming Festival. And it was such a phenomenal experience for both Tash and I. We said, hey, this would be a great template to do this. Now, this was a vision by Auntie Rhoda Roberts. And what she did was essentially the Dreaming Festival was all the Australian Aboriginal throughout country of Australia coming together in one place using all the smorgasbord and genres of arts. So you had anything from circuitry to film to music to poetry, dance, traditional dance that went on. And so our thing was, hey, this would be really good. And so what we did was we just held that vision for ourselves. What was really neat was we saw Auntie Rhoda in a conference in 2019 in LA before the pandemic. And we said, guess what, Auntie Rhoda? We're really starting down this track. She was just so pleased because we had been profoundly affected.
Let's go back to Auntie Rhoda. She had a tragedy happen in her life. She's Aboriginal. And she lost her sister to a tragic event.
A twin sister.
Mm-hmm. And from the pain of that and the Aboriginal culture and the historical trauma of colonization there, she had a vision to incorporate a festival honoring National Sorry Day, which is something that was instituted in Australia in the late 60s to acknowledge the wrongs that have happened to the Aboriginal people on the continent. So it came to this, where it was just the biggest festival. It's almost like the biggest festival in the whole world. It's like thousands of people. Like, it was the most insane thing I ever experienced in my life. I thought, boy, they talk about festivals in the States, man, they should go to the Dreaming Festival. But it was just a woman having a vision and sharing it with other visionary artists and creative people that love music and art and making it into this. I mean, they got us out there from the States, paid us. So we went, wow, maybe someday we can do that.
Yeah.
And then we saw all these other people doing their music on the stages. They had several different large stages, like I don't know how many stages there were, and it was in the bush.
So what was beautiful about it, I mean, you could go as a festival goer to see the entertainment, but it was layered. Yeah. And the layering was about the elders holding the prayer in the circle. So basically it was this huge ceremony. And then people would go, whether they knew that or not. It was just the sacred ceremony from prayer, from the opening to the closing. All this stuff going on, the sacred dances from each country around Australia coming in, doing their sacred thing. It was just so profound.
It changed
and
my
seeing
world.
all these different layers, Tash and I talked a lot about it. And so essentially when, we had this nonprofit, and so as Tash said, like Auntie Rhoda did, was hold this in prayer and vision.
And she's Southern Hemisphere. I'm Northern Hemisphere representation. So we said, let's do the whole circle the globe with our matrilineal Indigenous lineages with all of our ancestors, and let's bring everybody along to come together. So we're not at the Dreaming Festival level in Santa Fe, but my God, that's a vision.
So how this essentially started, we got a place, ta-da, here we are now. And we had some friends that turned this double garage that we've got into a studio.
Soundproof.
So we could play music. And it was like, well, why not just invite the community? Because we had so many friends that would be traveling through. So we'd have all these jam outs. And it was like, why not bring the community together? This was in around 2013. So we had 8 months of the year when we weren't traveling ourselves, that we would have this house concert series. People would just come, bring a plate, so it'd be feasting, community, talking, and then we'd go down into the studio to support the artist. And so that's how our community started. But the whole purpose of that was really so we could start the festival. So we'd have volunteers, community behind, to get this vision happening. And then 2018, where Tash is from, we had a festival in Chinle.
It's actually 2017.
Chinle, Arizona, on the Navajo Nation. It was really pivotal because at that time we had the Navajo president come in because he was zero tolerance on alcohol. So, for us in our journey, it is how can we collaborate and bring all these different resources that the communities have. So we're co-creating with the community, using what we're good at, music, the people that we know, utilizing local, and so local community as well. And so that theme for that year was addressing domestic violence, alcohol, and drug abuse. And the Navajo president, the Navajo Nation president at the time, all this stuff had happened, and he was really pushing through zero tolerance. So we had him come and speak. Tash, because of her passion with Native American, Indigenous, deaf and hard of hearing community, we had probably one of the first events on the Navajo Nation that was had full access to ASL interpreters. And then we had a lot of local and national performers come in to have this festival at Chinle, Arizona.
I'm just so there right now. She's talking about it, and I'm going to these heart moments. One guy, Jim, taught me sign language when I was 11 years old. White man, deaf, married a Navajo, had 2 sons, hearing, half-breeds like me. White man, Navajo woman, mother, father, father, mother. He came in a wheelchair, completely paralyzed from a stroke, with just this much movement from his hands. This guy was a handyman that could fix anything. He could lift a Volkswagen bug and have somebody change the tire. And he was a multitasking genius deaf man that taught me sign language. And at this festival, he comes in with his Navajo, the mother of his children, and they come in and they get to see what they started by teaching sign language. And they just came in, and it, I, there's not even any words to express what it was for these Navajos on stage to be doing prayers and ceremonies and songs with the Navajo linguists interpreting with the headset for the interpreters on the stage, full access in 3 languages. It was crazy. It was crazy. It was insane. And right there we said, we're here. Let's keep going.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So at that same year, 2018, we also had a healing festival with one of our partners, the Institute of American Indian Arts, where we're both alumni, and working with Dr. Sheila Rocha from the Performing Arts, and also instigating that, as well as these concert series that we were doing. Then in 2018, we went back to the Navajo Nation, and then we co-created with Diné College. And really it's planting seeds of skill sets that we've acquired along the way, like how to do a pop-up festival with the student body.
Yeah, the student body, teaching them how to, here's the blueprint, here's the manuscript. We're going to teach you. She's got an amazing teaching background, curriculum galore, teaching the students to say, now you're going to take it next year, run with it. Here it is.
So
that's how you do it.
Beautiful.
In 2018, and working with the student body, because it was in September, the theme was youth suicide awareness and prevention. And so it was bringing all the entities, including the Diné College health entities, the Navajo Nation health entities, specifically with youth suicide awareness and prevention.
With Indigenous rock stars, country western singers.
And also what's important, because a lot of the nation is super isolated, it's not often they have national, even international performers come in. So it was also important collaborating with the local schools and having our outreach program, education outreach program, with the performers going in to the schools and working with them. So that was the start. Then we went into 2020, and so we had all these festivals for 2020. A lot of our community have low to no bandwidth. So we were like, well, we've got this funding, we either give it back or we do this. And what we did was, starting the 1st of April 2020, we went online, doing this Zoom thing. Never heard of Zoom. We've always had ASL interpreters. So it was figuring out, how do we have the ASL interpreter? How do we have the presenter? How do we have us? So it was
the
just
musicians and the sound.
It was just
on
this
Zoom.
Incredible download, and also because of our touring both nationally and internationally, this format, we could tap into our resources internationally, which was fantastic. So what happened was, what we found with this format, like you, we just gained this international following with the Wisdom Circle, with the concert series, the Indigenous Ways virtual events. And then it was this time last year, we were looking at, okay, what should we be doing post-pandemic? We know a lot of people who won't leave their houses. How can we do something that can have our audiences that we've maintained through this virtual format, as well as bring our beloved community of Santa Fe out in a safe environment? So from May through to September, we've done these pop-up festivals, the Indigenous Way Festival, it was started off at different parks, but then working with our beloved city council, there were just lots of roadblocks. So we went with one park, the Santa Fe Rail Yard Park. So on the 3rd Wednesday of each month, for 3 hours, we have this, and at the first hour is engaging the community with all these different activities, and then on the main stage, when we bring our hybrid people in, or people beaming in from their lounge chairs, can watch from the main stage. But a lot of it was how to re-engage our beloved community. And so the question is, why do we do it? And it's simply because the importance of community, the importance of fundamental things. As a human species, we need connection. And what we have found through our journey, Lourdes, if you have, music touches the soul. We've been very blessed in our journey together, not only to meet you and the beautiful Annette, but many people who just really resonate on this gorgeous walk. And we do it because we love community. We love you. And it even though we have no idea what we're doing, we're up for the challenge because of humanity. Right now, humanity is really insane. But it's those who are very humbled that really hold the light and hold this incredible beauty to be able to do what they're doing. And so essentially, we love what we do. I love running with this woman. She is so much fun. And what I love about her, I'll have some brain-waxed idea, and I'll go, hey, Tash, what do you think of this? And she looks at me and she goes, that sounds cool. Let's try it. And it's like, oh, how should we do it? And then it's like, I don't know. And that's that coming back to what we talked about earlier. We can do this because of what we looked at internally within ourselves, each other, and the healing, the fundamental healing from our own trauma, our historical trauma, doing a path forward. But we wouldn't be able to do this without all our ancestors, without the support of our family, our community. And it's the community that we're able to do this because we have this incredible loving support from them.
Thank you, Elena.
That is such an amazing gift, and thank you.
How was that for a long-winded answer?
It's a beautiful answer. It just reverberates. It's like this wave that you create, and the things, that seeds that you plant, and then you don't know where they're gonna land, but you just keep doing it. You keep doing it. You keep doing it because you want to do it.
Because you're doing that. It's not like, well, this is and this is what's neat as you're doing. We're just flying. We're just going with it. We're flowing with it. It's not like
going and flowing.
Oh, like in the next 5 years, this is what we're going to do. In the next year, in the next month. I mean, we really don't know. Yes, we do know we've got this until September, but it's co-creating not only with Tash, our board, it's co-creating with the community, giving them voice, giving our vendors voice, our artisans, the food vendors, the artists, because we're co-creating this all together. And that's the beauty of it.
Which brings me to
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. No, thank you. I want to, for this final question, you made it part of your mission to be sure that the people and the elders of Black Mountain were not alone during the pandemic. And you gathered tons, literally tons of needed supplies, did several runs to deliver directly to the people. The pandemic's not over, poverty is not over, racism is not over. Tell us a little bit about the runs and your thoughts about the importance of this kind of community mutual support. You already spoke about that a little bit, but that was amazing.
Well, thank you. It's like Elena said, we really don't know, don't plan, but manifest a vision. And again, we were hearing by word of mouth from the Navajo Nation what was happening. Some of it was coming through on the news. And the word was getting out that the Navajo people were getting hit really hard with empty shelves in the border towns because they did this. Everybody just bought everything out, and the supply and demand just collapsed, basically. And we got a call from a friend, a Latinx sister, and she said, I have some friends in California that want to send some supplies to the Navajo Nation. Can you help us? So me and Elena, we looked at each other, we talked to each other, and we said, who's the really most that we know of that is the most neglected, and it's Black Mountain. It's Big Mountain. It's where my grandmother was born and bred, where my mom was born and bred. There's no running water, there's no electricity, and it people live so far apart on sheep camps, and it's all dirt roads. And we decided to contact the chapter house up there, Katsili, and say some people wanted to give a donation. Is it permitted for us to come fully covered and everything? And they say, yeah, we need everything. We need water, we need adult diapers, we need food, we need non-perishables, we need everything. So we put the word out and we put it on our platform because we're already doing the podcast. So we told everybody this is what we're doing, and everything just started coming in, and truckloads were coming in. Of one lady brought a big box this big with nothing but produce, 50 of them, and that's a whole back of a truck right there. And then she also brought several pallets of gallons of water, which just took the truck down like this. And then I didn't realize how heavy water is. It's very heavy. So then we have to rent a U-Haul and get some other people with pickup trucks to pitch in, and then get them on U-Hauls as well, and just load it up and just follow each other up that dirt road mountain. It's like 7-hour drive, and meet at the chapter house, and just all these trucks lined up, like 50 or 60 trucks lined up. And we just put like up to 7 different boxes of goods into each truck, and everybody goes home. But that's the Band-Aid for the need right there and then, knowing that this stuff's going to run out. So we have to keep going. So far we did 22 runs up to the mountain. So we're going to be taking a festival, we're manifesting a festival up there in Black Mountain next year. And it's going to be called the Bebe'ina, and that means the sheep is life. And the sheep is life is going to bring the weavers out. And of course, we're going to do music. We're going to bring some country western singers and hip hoppers and folkies and do a concert up there. But it's going to be around the livelihood of the sheep herders to honor them.
And I do want to add this. In May 2020, when we did our first run, it was in memory of Tasha's grandmother, her beloved grandmother, Margaret Dalton, who passed at the beginning of May. And thanks to Joni with that suggestion, because we were doing 2 Indigenous Ways virtual events per week, because it was important for us. How do we engage our audience? How do we support all our artists, not only Native American, Indigenous, our LGBTQIA2+, and deaf and hard of hearing presenters? How do we support them? And so we would be sharing twice a week what was happening. And even though this pandemic, because it was, remember, everything got shut down mid-March. So this is all brand new stuff. The outpour from the community was just phenomenal. In that time, because of the platform, we were very blessed to raise over 250,000 online and in-kind donations. And we had over, I think the most we had was something like 26 people show up onto our front lawn just to help pack all these boxes. Then there'd be a mob of us.
Including now Wolf.
Then there'd be a mob of us that would convoy up to the mountain. And in the start of 2021, January 2021, Tasha's friend who taught her sign language sent us a text saying, hey, I've got no food, I need help. And we happened to be going up. And when we dropped some food off at her, and then we continued up to Black Mountain.
We dropped a lot of food to her.
It was like, if this is this elder who is deaf, what else is happening to deaf elders on the Navajo Nation? And because of Tasha's connections, we found like this community was missing out because of lack of communications on this. So then we started catering for that. But it was only possible because of the love and support from the community. So we were very blessed to see this outpouring of support of volunteers who really needed and wanted to help people in need. And our contribution of that, well, for me, it was really in memory of Tasha's grandmother and honoring her because of this super isolated area, Black Mountain, on the Navajo Nation.
Thank you, Elena. Yeah, that's my grandmother. It's all for her, but she is related up there. She's a role model up there. And thank you for asking that question. It's very meaningful to us.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work you've done. Thank you, Tash Terry and Elena Higgins, for your precious time spent with us today. We love you and we are grateful to you for being who you are. I'm your host, Lourdes Pérez. We are VoxFem.org. Please like and subscribe to this program, and also IndigenousWays.org.
Thank you.
We're going to have all links below. Gracias. Thank you. Love you.
Thank you. Love you.
Muchas gracias.
Stay safe, everybody.
Aloha nui.
Ayo
no shene.
Love,
Oh,
Take
we
care.
love you. Les queremos muchísimo.
Sí.
Mucho amor.
Take care.